From Germany to Ohio and everywhere in between, here's the LGBTQ News, May 2020. Welcome everyone to Powered and Protected by Rainbows. I am of course your host, Matt Haslam. And before we jump into our episode, first off, don't forget to like this video, comment down below your LGBTQ friendly thoughts, and hit that rainbow subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes of Season 3. Anyway, on to the news. First up today, Germany has now passed a nationwide ban on gay conversion therapy. If you aren't aware, conversion therapy is the practice of trying to change someone's sexual preference or gender identity. In reality, conversion therapy is never successful in changing someone's preference or identity, but only increases the risk of suicide, which is why many call these suicide camps instead of conversion therapy camps. The German health minister, Jens Spahn, promised back in June of 2019 to ban conversion therapy, and in November of 2019, he drafted the legislation which would punish camp owners and parents by up to a year in prison or a hefty fine. But now with the legislation passed, the fine stands at $32,000 per violation and bars practitioners and parents from having their children take part in conversion therapy. As the law stands now, anyone under the age of 18 is not allowed to be a patient in conversion therapy in Germany, but Germany's Green Party is calling for the age to be raised to 26, while the Left Party is calling for it to be raised to 27. But other organizations still think the law has massive loopholes, one being the Lesbian and Gay Federation of Germany, who said in a statement, quote, "It is feared that due to the significant shortcomings in the law, effective and consistent protection for lesbians, gays, bisexual, and transgender people cannot be achieved. For an effective ban, the LSVD calls for the introduction of a protective age limit of at least 26 years, as well as general criminal liability, even for legal guardians, if they participate in these polarity reversal measures for minors. At this time, the law seems to only put a substantial fine on practitioners and parents, or legal guardians. But for some families or hate groups, $32,000 is a small price to pay, especially considering these groups can have deep-pocketed donors. So here at PBR, we applaud Germany for implementing a conversion therapy ban, but agree prison sentences need to be implemented because children's lives are at risk, and fines are a slap on the wrist for some groups. Heading east in Europe now, we sadly have to talk about a new study in Russia. This past month, the Levada Center, which is a non-governmental research organization in Moscow, Russia, published the findings of their recent survey. To conduct their Soviet person survey, they polled over 1,600 people from 50 Russian regions in face-to-face interviews, asking them a series of questions in order to find out how ostracized certain people are from the Russian society. Those certain people include LGBTQ, feminists, pedophiles, terrorists, and people living with HIV and AIDS. According to their findings, 1 in 5 Russians want to eliminate LGBTQ people from the Russian society. Now, it is extremely important you understand that by the word eliminate, they are not referring to killing LGBTQ people. 1 in 5 Russians simply mean that they don't want LGBTQ people to exist in their country, which is only slightly more comforting to hear. The survey referenced the word distancing multiple times, not in context to the COVID-19 pandemic currently going on, but instead meaning 1 in 5 Russians would rather LGBTQ people be distant of their society, and that way they wouldn't have to deal with LGBTQ people at all in their country. This comes after the federal government in Russia passed a law in June of 2013, which banned the distribution of information on LGBTQ relationships and issues to minors. This is called the Gay Propaganda Law, and it's not necessarily limited to actually handing a child a pamphlet. Any act or event which Russian authorities deem to promote homosexuality to children is punishable by a fine. Shortly after, in 2014, the Human Rights Watch reported an increase in anti-LGBTQ violence in Russia. And in a 2019 poll, more than half of all LGBTQ people in Russia reported experiencing at least one type of violence or abuse due to their sexual preference or gender identity. And this isn't to mention the numerous reports of Russia detaining LGBTQ people in Chechnya. In other words, at least for the moment, Russia is not a very safe place for LGBTQ people to live. Next, in what is possibly my second favorite story this month, Netflix and Amazon Prime came together to fight homophobia. If you haven't seen memes floating around the internet of the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, there's one which shows the character Patrick shoving a pumpkin down SpongeBob's throat. And while many use this meme to poke fun of media outlets or even poke fun of Trump, one person by the name of Adam made the meme into a homophobic one, calling out Netflix for packing a gay character into any new series of theirs. This is a move Adam calls, quote, unnecessary. And for the record, that tweet has about 37,000 retweets and 144,000 likes. But it was solely up to the LGBTQ allies on Twitter to respond and stick up for the LGBTQ community, pointing out in the over 6,400 comments that studios put unnecessary straight couples in almost all TV shows, so thankfully Netflix puts gay characters in as well. That was until Netflix itself decided to respond. They did so by retweeting Adam's post with a comment of their own, stating, quote, "Sorry you have yet to realize that every gay person is very necessary." Oh, and the Netflix comment got upwards of 110,000 retweets and 667,000 likes. But as if that wasn't amazing enough, Amazon Prime Video then replied to Netflix with a SpongeBob meme of their own. Their meme was of SpongeBob making a rainbow with his hands, signifying their solidarity with Netflix to realize the importance of every LGBTQ person. Some fans like Melissa Goldman even saying, quote, "I love Netflix and Amazon Prime coming together to protect the gays." Next, we travel 45 miles northeast of Ohio's capital, Columbus, to a small town of Gambier, Ohio, with a population of 2,391 people. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, when local town councils have postponed their council meetings until it is safe to hold them again, Gambier officials have held their May meeting virtually on the video conferencing app Zoom. During their May meeting, they officially passed an LGBTQ inclusive human rights ordinance. This protects their LGBTQ citizens from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. This ordinance is modeled heavily after the Ohio Fairness Act, which, according to numerous Ohio media outlets, has been stuck in the state's Republican-dominated House of Representatives for years without being allowed a vote, even though the bill has bipartisan support. In a statement to press, Alana Jochum, who is the executive director of Equality Ohio, said, quote, "The world seems to be on hold, but many people can't wait to be afforded basic legal protections everyone else has. Generally, LGBTQ people in Ohio are not covered in the laws that make discrimination illegal. We are all making hard decisions right now. Whether or not you can be out and open at work should not be one of them. We applaud Gambier for protecting its residents and advocating for all LGBTQ Ohioans." While Gambier may just be a town of 2,391 people, this new ordinance means that over a quarter of Ohio's state population is now covered by LGBTQ anti-discrimination laws. Next, we travel to the country of Morocco, where we sadly have to discuss the transgender model and social media influencer named Sophia Talani. Normally on our show, we are glad to talk about a transgender social media influencer, but Sophia is by no means a representative of the LGBTQ community. In fact, by her recent actions, she is the bad apple in the community. This past month, Sophia thought it was hypocritical of Moroccan men to be secretly gay and use apps such as Grindr and Planet Romeo. So, in her recent Instagram live video, she encouraged fellow women to set up fake accounts on these gay dating apps. She informed her followers that these gay dating apps use your location in order to find you potential matches. So she is quoted saying in her video that it could show you your husband in your bedroom. It could show you your son who might be in the bathroom. One important thing to note is that Morocco is one of many countries where being homosexual is currently illegal, and if found to be homosexual, you could face anywhere from 6 months to 3 years in prison, with a fine of up to 1,200 dirham, which is the equivalent of $326 per violation. In total, a local LGBTQ rights group in the country of Morocco found over 100 gay men were outed by this movement. And with the current lockdown for the coronavirus in the country, gay men couldn't escape to be outside of the radius of their families who created these fake accounts. Many outed gay men were cut off from any communication with their families and friends. One man who returned from France during the lockdown even committed suicide after being outed. As if it wasn't bad enough already, Sophia also invited a gay man by the name of Yassine to come on her Instagram live program. Sophia reportedly used her influence as a transgender person to promise Yassine he would be supported. But then shortly after the live broadcast began, Sophia threatened Yassine that she would post incriminating photos of him if he didn't come out as gay live on her show. Luckily, Facebook, Instagram, and all other social media platforms have taken down all of Sophia's current social media accounts and vowed they don't allow anyone to out any LGBTQ people. Back in America, the state of Virginia became the 21st state in the country to pass a law banning discrimination of LGBTQ people in employment, housing, and public spaces. Virginia's Governor Ralph Northam signed the Virginia Values Act into law on April 11, 2020. The law was helped by grassroots LGBTQ organizations called Freedom for All Americans and Virginia Values. Reportedly, Freedom for All Americans helped the Virginia Values Coalition in communications, digital strategy, bill drafting and analysis, grassroots lobbying and organizing, and financial investments. Before the bill passed, 68% of Virginians were supportive of the bill and anti-discrimination legislation to protect LGBTQ Virginians. A spokesperson for Freedom for All Americans told reporters that while Virginia was the 21st state to pass such legislation, a majority of Americans want a federal law passed, so all LGBTQ people in the country have the same protections. This bill, of course, is called the Equality Act, and to learn more about that federal bill, you can check out our episode explaining it in detail. Heading west in the United States, sadly we have to discuss a tragedy which unfolded in San Francisco, California. But first, let me introduce you to a 22-year-old man by the name of Courtney Brasiao, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. He was an employee of Twitter, but also co-founded a group called Gay for Transit. This was an organization which promoted the visibility and safety of LGBTQ people on public transportation in the San Francisco area. He volunteered at the California YMCA Youth and Government Program and reportedly donated over $50 a month to different LGBTQ organizations. From just reading different reports and quotes made by his peers and even by those he petitioned against, Courtney seemed to be an incredible LGBTQ rights activist. Sadly, with the past tense used in that last statement, you likely know where this story is leading. But on May 1st, 2020, at 8:17 p.m., Courtney was in San Francisco's Dolores Park eating a burrito. He even posted to Twitter saying, quote, "I just ate a delicious burrito in Dolores Park, and for a brief moment, everything felt okay." Moments later, 2 men got out of a nearby vehicle and fired 50 to 60 shots. Courtney and a 17-year-old were caught in the crossfire. While the 17-year-old sustained non-life-threatening injuries, Courtney was rushed to the hospital, where he passed away 3 days later. The only good news in this story, if there can be any good news, is that it seems to not have been a targeted attack against Courtney, since police are saying he was only caught in the crossfire. But the local police have yet to make any arrest in the murder, and the investigation is ongoing. Anyone with information on the suspects are encouraged to contact the San Francisco, California Police Department. Next up, on April 30th, news anchor Anderson Cooper revealed he became a father to a boy named Wyatt Cooper. Now, if you're not aware, Anderson Cooper is a gay man, who we covered in our recent episode, 15 People You Didn't Know Are LGBTQ. But thanks to a surrogate mother, he has now become a dad. He took to Instagram with a post reading, quote, "As a gay kid, I never thought it would be possible to have a child, and I'm grateful for all those who have paved the way, and for the doctors and nurses and everyone involved in my son's birth." Then he opened up more about becoming a father on his show.
On Monday, I became a father. I've never actually said that before out loud, and it still kind of astonishes me. I am a dad, I have a son, and I want you to meet him. This is Wyatt Cooper. He is 3 days old. He's named after my dad, who died when I was 10 years old. I hope I can be as good a dad as he was. My son's middle name is Morgan, which is a family name on my mom's side. I know my mom and dad liked the name Morgan because while I was going through her things recently, I found a list they'd made 52 years ago when they were trying to think of names for me. Morgan was on the list. So that's Wyatt Morgan Cooper, my son. He was 7.2 pounds at birth, and he is sweet and soft and healthy, and I am beyond happy. As a gay kid, I never thought it would be possible to have a child, and I'm so grateful for all those who paved the way and for the doctors and nurses and everyone involved in my son's birth. Most of all, I am eternally grateful to a remarkable surrogate who carried Wyatt, watched over him lovingly, tenderly, and gave birth to him. It's an extraordinary blessing which she and all surrogates give to families who can't have children. My surrogate has a beautiful family of her own, an amazingly supportive husband. I'm also so thankful for all the support that they have given Wyatt and me. And she has kids of her own, and I appreciate their support as well. My family is blessed to have this family in our lives. I do wish my mom and my dad and my brother Carter were alive to meet Wyatt, but I like to believe that they can see him. I imagine them all together, arms around each other, smiling and laughing and watching, looking down on us. Happy to know that their love is alive in me and in Wyatt, and that our family continues. New life and new love.
Next, we travel to Washington, D.C., where Section 1557 of the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act is now under rewrite by the Trump administration. Back in 2015, this section went into place, which protected LGBTQ people from being turned away or discriminated against by hospitals and healthcare providers based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. It was and still is the first and only rule of its kind on a federal level to protect LGBTQ patients in the healthcare industry. But amid the global pandemic, when minorities are being disproportionately affected by COVID-19, the Trump administration is currently in the final steps of passing a rewrite of this Section 1557, which would no longer protect LGBTQ people in any way from being discriminated against by healthcare providers. This not only comes at a time during the COVID-19 pandemic, but amid reports by the Center for American Progress, which now finds that more than 8% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual adults and 29% of transgender adults are being turned away by healthcare providers still to this day. But not to worry, because the Trump administration's excuse for why they are taking away these LGBTQ protections is because, as the administration quotes, there is no protections to get rid of. They are referencing a federal judge in Texas named Judge Reed O'Connor, who decided not to uphold Section 1557 when a healthcare case made its way to his courtroom last year. A U.S. Department of Health and Human Services spokesperson said in a statement that, quote, "A federal judge has vacated the gender identity provisions of the regulations, and we are abiding by that court order." Well, golly gee, thanks for that, Mr. Trump. But if Trump actually signs this anti-LGBTQ policy, which he is fully expected to any day now because his administration is the one writing it, it will become the 137th anti-LGBTQ policy in action in just 1,200 days in office, keeping with Trump's longtime record of about one anti-LGBTQ policy per week of his administration so far. Keep in mind, most homophobic presidents in U.S. history have only one or two anti-LGBTQ policies in their entire 4 to 8 year term. Trump now has 136 and is about to have 137, putting him far superior to the title of the worst homophobic and transphobic president in US history. And now for my favorite story of the month. And for that, we have to go back to Ohio, where we are happy to report on a story about Candice Keller. Now, if her name sounds familiar, it's because we reported on Candice back in September of 2019. And we reported on her because after the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, Candice Keller, who is an Ohio state representative in the 53rd District, took to Facebook. In her post, she blamed all mass shootings on, quote, the breakdown of the traditional American family. Thank you, transgender, homosexual marriage, and drag queen advocates, fatherlessness, the ignoring of violent video games, and more. That means while her state was mourning the loss of 9 of their citizens, and while 17 others were still recovering from being shot, Candice was blaming everything but the root of the problem of mass shootings. And this was maybe because she's supported by the NRA. Over the years, Candice also compared Planned Parenthood to the Nazi Party and appeared on a radio show which is hosted by a white supremacist. But in the April 2020 primary race for the Republican seat, Candice Keller lost the primary to the Republican challenger, George Lang. Now, while this is a small victory, we cannot fully celebrate a massive homophobe like Candice Keller losing in a primary. First off, her challenger, George Lang, got 12,339 votes, compared to Candice Keller getting only 8,107 votes. But this means that 8,107 people voted for her, even though she blamed mass shootings on gay people. We also have to consider she could still run in the general election in November as an independent, but it is unlikely she would win without party financial support. Finally, we have to consider, while Equality Ohio, which is an LGBTQ rights organization in Ohio, gave Candice an F rating, they also gave George Lang a D rating when looking at his policies and actions for their 2018 elected official scorecard. So the victory is a good one that she lost, but it is still far from perfect. Finally this month, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and amid all the horrible news of over 300 LGBTQ pride parades and festivals worldwide being canceled due to social distancing and safety mandates, the LGBTQ has once again proved that love is greater than all other forces. Organizers from around the world are coming together to host a virtual pride festival called Global Pride on June 27, 2020. This is just one day after Marriage Equality Day here in the United States, a day which the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gay marriage. But Global Pride will be a 24-hour-long live stream on many networks, which is set to feature contributions from pride organizers around the world. It will also feature speeches from human rights activists and musical performances, though the artist and specific speakers have yet to be announced. We will be sure to share that Pride live stream on our official Facebook page. But most exciting of all, we are actually working really hard to be a part of that Global Pride as much as possible. But obviously details are going to come in time on that part. Anyway, that's all for our episode today, but we do have a special live after show, which will be airing immediately after this episode on our channel. So click the link in the description for that after show, or just head on over to our channel to check it out. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this episode and want to support more content like this, please consider pledging to our Patreon page, where you can get a ton of benefits. Just go to patreon.com/MHPTV, or click the link in the description. Don't forget to like this video, share your LGBTQ-friendly thoughts in the comments, hit that rainbow subscribe button so you don't miss out on new episodes of our show, and share this video with others. I'm your host, Matt Haslam. This has been PBR. Have a gay day, everyone, and bye for now. Watch Powered by Rainbows Season 3, only on MHP TV.